Hello everyone, this will be the continuation of The Growing Pains of Child Soldiers by Bloodwolf13, read by Insect Overlord. This will be Chapter 2, titled Curiosity Killed the Bug. Marinette finally puts the phone down and looks up to Alia. She's arguing with Nathaniel about something. Is obviously their age. Why would Ladybug pick an adult when the team is basically teenagers only? Alia defends. We don't know if it's Ladybug who picks the heroes. What if it's somebody else? Counters Nathaniel. Before she can respond, Nino looks up at Marinette and asks, Dudette, what do you think? Suddenly, Alia, Nathaniel, and Adrian all focus on her. Well, I don't know, she stutters out an answer. It's fine, girl. I needed some time after reading the theory before I could even form an opinion. It was a lot of information. Alia replies. Well, this theory is well constructed, Max interjects. Most of the points have proof backing it up, and when the writer isn't sure, she states it. Also, all her sources are from credible places. The photos are from live fights or from news reports. The statistics used regarding their fights come from the University of Paris. The only real thing we can argue about is the heroes' ages. It says as much in the theory. The estimate of their ages is thrown off by what phase of puberty they might be in, adds Adrian. I like how she doesn't try to analyze the heroes' bodies to find out their ages. That would be creepy, Alex says. Some creep is probably going to do this on the news. I think admitting that she wasn't able to make an accurate guess about Viperion, Ryuku, King Monkey, and Pegasus was very smart. Max interrupts Alex before she can start to rant. I agree that King Monkey and Viperion are probably teens too, but since there isn't evidence, it's all based on speculation. What about Ryuku and Pegasus? Adrian asks. Not sure. If it was only their heights in question, I would argue against it. However, based on the amount of information and that at least 4 other heroes appear to be underage, he looks at Chloe in the corner of his eye, and one is confirmed, it gives the theory a little more credibility. Marinette suppresses a chuckle at how awkward Max sounds talking about his superhero persona. It's nice to see other people, other than herself, having a difficult time keeping the secret. I dunno, Nathaniel says. Even Lady Cat 7 admits it's not really a certainty. Maybe Ryuku and Pegasus are just short. Max doesn't really look happy with the last statement, but he knows he can't really confirm that Pegasus is a teenager. That is your personal opinion. You don't have all the facts, Max says, a little frustrated. What I think is really interesting is how magic seems to affect adults and kids differently. Why do you think this is? Lady Cat 7 says she has several theories about it, but she didn't write them. It wasn't the main part of the theory, Nathaniel says. I find it really curious, though. Alex cuts him off. Show hands. Who here believes that Ladybug and Cat Noir were older than 18 when they started? No one in the class raises their hands. Marinette decides to join the conversation. She needs more information before making a decision about how to handle this. To be fair, I think we were more focused on how Ladybug and Cat Noir were fighting Hawkmoth. There wasn't a lot of information back then. Even now, we still don't know that much about the Miraculous. Marinette is right. According to Markov, about 86% of the questions originally put forward by the public still don't have an answer. It's normal we don't concentrate on the question of their ages, when we still don't know that much about the magic. Max looks uncomfortable saying the word. And Lady Cat 7 theorizes that's part of said magic. There are simply a lot of factors that we don't have regarding the Miraculous. There was a pause after he spoke, almost like everyone was trying to absorb what was said. Then, all hell broke loose. Most of the class was trying to talk over each other, and no one could understand a thing. A sudden whistle made everybody shut up. They all turned their heads to the front of the class, where Mrs. Bustier was standing. Marinette had never heard her teacher whistle before. I know you're all very excited about debating that theory, but we have to start class. If we finish early, I promise that you can keep debating. You'll just need to do it more silently. Thank goodness for Miss Bustier. Everyone shuts up and turns to their teacher. It's an extremely silent lesson. Marinette can't recall ever hearing a more quiet morning in class. Sadly, the rest of the class went by very fast. Marinette, for the first time in her life, wanted more work. She was not even close to finding a solution to her problems. From what she could see, most of her classmates weren't worried about her age. However, this could be because a few of them were also superheroes. Plus, if she took into consideration that most of them never believed that Ladybug and Cat Noir were adults, she needs more information. Marinette has no idea how adults are going to react to this. If the post is anything to go by, then most adults, or all adults, have been under the assumption that Ladybug and Cat Noir are a lot older. Logically, she knows that they can't really do anything about it. Hawkmoth and the Akumas are not something that will go away on their own. A part of her is hopeful that the miraculous magic will keep this from spreading. The other part, the realistic side of her, is telling her that this will not be contained. Although most news stations don't really use Alia's blog, some do use the footage from the battles, and occasionally, a couple of the most popular theories. It would take a miracle for this to be ignored. Even if most would assume it was false, it would be really interesting to debate the heroes' ages. She needs to come up with a plan, and fast. She needs more information, specifically from an adult. If Marinette doesn't get ahead of the curve and fast, she and Cat are for a rough few months in the public eye. She waits for the end of class, and just before being dismissed, she asks, "Miss Bustier, can you mediate the debate we are about to resume?" All eyes turn to her, and Marinette turns red. I mean, there are a lot of ideas floating around, and things just got a little confusing at the end with the screaming. There's an awkward pause, and Marinette realizes that she could have insulted the entire class by calling them a bunch of loudmouths. Thankfully, Alia comes to the rescue. That's a nice way of saying we were all screaming at each other, and no one could understand one another. Miss Bustier smiles and accepts Marinette's proposition. On the plus side, no one seemed offended. In fact, most seemed relieved. Marinette guesses that the class had realized that it would be a lot easier to hear each other. Okay, rules. If you have anything to say, raise your hand. If there is more than one person with their hand raised, wait for me to call on you. Don't interrupt your classmates, and don't yell. Everyone agrees with the rules. Very well. Marinette, it was your suggestion. Can you give us a brief explanation of the topic and a summary of what was previously debated? The theory on Alia's blog was about the ages of Ladybug and Cat Noir. Someone was trying to find out their ages, especially because they seemed to be growing in height. She notices Miss Bustier flinched at the mention of them growing up, but forces herself not to react. She could ask later about Miss Bustier's opinion. We were mostly focusing on the statistics and how the magic was affecting us differently from the adults. Okay, does anyone want to start? Before she finishes the question, most of the hands shot up. Miss Bustier takes a different strategy. Let's start with, do you consider that the theory has valid points, yes or no? All of them said yes. Is there anything about the theory that you liked or disliked? Agree or don't agree? Max and Alia's hands shot up faster than the others. Miss Bustier decided to start with Alia since it was her blog, and she had read the theory first. As such, Alia had more time to analyze and reflect upon it. I think that it was really smart how Lady Cat 7 analyzed the Pharaoh fight. At the time, I was so excited to know Ladybug's age that I didn't even think that she could have lied to the Akuma. She admits, a little embarrassed. Plus, the way she noticed the surprise on Cat Noir's face, and how that was the only time Ladybug ever talked about her age. To be fair, that was one of the first battles. People just didn't have a lot of information. Adrian raises his hand and adds to Alia's commentary. Most people seem to agree with Adrian. Could they have reincarnated? That's one of the most popular theories on the blog, that the heroes are either old or are born in time of great need, Kim says. Max intervenes. Unlikely, since that would mean the temporary heroes are all reincarnated. He pauses, probably trying to tell them why not, in a way that doesn't incriminate him as a superhero. I believe that Chloe could clarify that for us. Do you have any information of past lives? No. Even if it's obvious that I was queen in other lives, I don't remember them. Chloe responds while inspecting her fingernails. Also, I don't know why everyone thinks that Ladybug was an adult. Ridiculous. Utterly ridiculous. Why do you say that? How do you know? Adrian asks. Well, Adrikins, She stops and blinks. It was the first time Marinette was seeing a person realizing that they are affected by the miraculous magic. Chloe was Queen Bee, but that didn't mean she couldn't be affected by miraculous magic. I just did. In the back of her mind, Marinette made a note to have a discussion with Master Fu about how powerful the magic was and the limits it had, but right now that wasn't a priority. If we assume that the Ladybug and Cat Noir of now are not the ones of ancient Egypt, there is no other reference to their age, Max summarizes. Alex raises her hand. It would also be completely out of character for them to reveal anything personal. One day, Alia finds an 8th grade textbook, and the next day, Ladybug and Cat Noir imply to be older than that. The timing is too suspicious. I was determined to search every girl in our year until I found one without a textbook, but that reveal of their alleged ages completely threw me off. Alia looks like she's going to start a rant. Marinette really hopes she doesn't go around asking girls for their history textbooks. Never mind that it was a year ago, and some girls might not even have the book anymore. Marinette intervenes before Alia starts obsessing over this again. I don't really believe that the book was Ladybug's. Alia turns to her, frowning. Think about it. I have never seen Ladybug carrying school materials while in costume. Why would she be carrying one then? Marinette actually got scared of having anything on her that could identify her. It was a lesson learned, but no one needed to know that. Thankfully, Adrian seems to pick up on what she's trying to convince, and adds, "You think she was holding it for a civilian? Or that she saw it and was going to return it?" She turns red at being put on the spot, but thankfully the entire class will just assume that it's her crush on Adrian, and okay, the blush was not 100% because of the debate. They don't question her pause. Now, I think Ladybug was going to return it. We have seen Ladybug return lost personal items to people before. Then why would she take the book back from me? She was trying to protect the owners. If the book wasn't hers and you found it before she could have lied, would you have put that on your blog? Alia nods in response to Adrian. Well, you could have made that person a target. Even if Hawkmoth didn't believe you, he could still have gone after the person to see if they were close to Ladybug. Alia pales a little at the thought. No one in their right mind would want to help Hawkmoth akumatize people or make them a target. Max takes that moment to raise his hand and add his opinion on the theory. I really like the structure of the theory. There are several parts that could be developed into their own theories. One of them is on how Lady Cat 7 was affected by magic differently than us. They honestly thought that the heroes were adults. Nathaniel shyly raises his hand. I think we were affected by the magic a lot more than we realize. Really? How? Several people try to ask at the same time. Miss Bustier clears her throat and tells Nathaniel to continue. In the beginning, I noticed that every time I drew the heroes, it was really hard to stick with the same colors or facial features. It was hard not to have two drawings showing different eye colors. After a while, I just automatically started sticking to a color, but it wasn't something that I was sure of. It was instinct. Sometimes I go on DeviantArt to check out other versions, and Nathaniel diverts his eye contact to the table. Well, it's like they've only seen blurred photos of Ladybug. Sometimes they're completely different. They draw her as an adult? Asks Alex. No. I've seen drawings of her having light blue eyes, dark blue eyes, big lips, small lips, different facial structures, and so much more. There's always something different, usually a small detail, and you don't see the detail unless you are looking for it. It's like people see completely different versions of her. They usually get the bigger details right. The color of her uniform, the position of the spots, and her height difference from Cat Noir is all the same, but the rest? Have you noticed the same in Cat Noir? Jaluka inquiries. Yes, I have drawn him less, but it's the same. One of the most difficult things was the eye color. I know they're green, but what type of green? I've seen dozens of drawings, all with different colors. So what you're trying to tell us is the magic is always affecting us, not just when we interact with the heroes? Max looks like he's about to implode with the amount of information and theories related to magic. He also looks really happy to try and figure it out, so Marinette takes this as a win. Dude, that is beyond insane. It means no matter what you're thinking about, the magic is always affecting you. Maybe, but it can only work if you are thinking about the heroes, Max sighs. Markov, please point that out as another mystery. How many do we have now? Currently, there are 43 questions without answers. Nathaniel, have you tried to draw the new heroes? Rose asks. Yes, the problems are the same. No matter how many photographs and videos I have, since we don't know who they are, we can't really know what they look like. Are we really sure their eyes and hair are that color? Could they change with the transformation? Alia asks, leaving the class to try to piece together an answer. Marinette decides to take that moment to see if her classmates notice the differences in Chloe. She usually notices. It goes beyond that. I mean, can anyone here describe what Chloe looks like in the mask? No one in the class says a word. I was there when she first transformed, and I can barely describe what happened. That was partially because Marinette was freaking out about having lost the bee Miraculous, and freaking Chloe Bourgeois finding it. You're right. Adrienne looks at her in shock. I was also there, but I can't really describe what happened. There was a flash of light, and then Chloe was in costume, looking completely different. I know that it was Chloe, so I could see her there, but... He trails off, not knowing what to say. Fortunately, Marinette knows exactly what he's trying to say. Her energy, it was like something had changed about her. You couldn't really say what changed, but you knew there was something different. She looks back at the rest of the class. Can anyone here think about Chloe and Queen Bee and say they look identical? Maybe that wasn't the best way to satisfy her curiosity on how the others perceive superheroes, because chaos breaks out again. Everyone starts talking over each other. Miss Bustier had to actually whistle for a while to get their attention. One at a time, please. Chloe, since you're Queen Bee, maybe you can tell us if you notice any differences while transforming? Chloe preens at the attention and looks smug, so she fails to notice the strain in Miss Bustier's smile at the mention of Queen Bee. Obviously, I have the best outfit of all the heroes. Groans were heard throughout the class. Alex actually shouts, "Just answer the question." Chloe, in a rare moment of self-awareness, stays on point. Fine. When I look at the photos, I don't really see any difference. When I transform, I don't really think about my appearance because I'm too busy fighting. Marinette, not wanting to hear Chloe's perspective on the fights, interrupts. Does she look physically the same as Queen Bee? Chloe glares at her. Don't Chloe's eyes become lighter when she's Queen Bee? Sabrina asks. Chloe looks at her like she's lost her mind. Ridiculous. Utterly ridiculous. When I tried to draw Queen Bee, I usually found it easier to use photos outside of the costume, Nathaniel adds. That means even the people we know will still be difficult to identify when they're in superhero form. Max looks at Markov. Does that mean that the magic stays in effect even if we know the identity of the person? That means we may have actually seen all the heroes of Paris outside of their masks, but the magic is protecting them. Sure, that, and 6 of all the Miraculous users in Paris are sitting in the classroom, and no one seems to notice, Marinette thinks. Queen Bee, Rena Rouge, Caprice, King Monkey, Pegasus, and me. The magic is that powerful. Marinette has always assumed that the only reason she's barely affected was due to being Ladybug. She has always had an eye for details, and she knows almost all the superheroes' secret identities. The rest of the conversation is back and forth on how different the heroes look and the magic behind it. Marinette takes the opportunity to begin developing a plan. She has gathered a few things from the conversation. Firstly, is that everyone believed that Ladybug had lied about her age when fighting the Pharaoh. Secondly, though a few of them have noticed that they're already affected by the magic, they can't immediately identify it if it's not pointed out. Thirdly, they seem more fascinated by the magic and its effects than Ladybug or Cat's ages. Although she couldn't really go around talking about miraculous magic, she could easily drop hints that their aging was only a trick caused by the magic. It would take some work and a little luck, but it was doable. If her classmates, some of the actual heroes, couldn't see that the magic was actively working right now, the distraction should work. She had to talk to Cat Noir before making an actual plan, but it was more to make sure everything was lined up. There was just something she needed before making Plan A. She needed Miss Bustier's opinion. If the Miraculous was affecting adults differently, they could be more focused on their ages, and that was dangerous. If such was the case, then Plan B was going to be different. They would acknowledge that they were not adults, but not disclose their ages because of the danger that Hawkmoss presents. She wouldn't say that she had started this when she was barely 13. Ladybug would imply that she was in her late teens, maybe even 20 years old. That would make them 17, 18 when Hawkmoth first started. Maybe a comment about how Queen Bee is just a couple of years younger. It would be difficult to deal with the fallout of underage heroes, if only they knew, but since they were no longer underage, no harm, no foul. If anyone else has anything to add? Miss Bustier asks, drawing Marinette's attention back to the class. Are we sure that Hawkmoth and Mayura are adults? Kim asks. Marinette has no idea if this is a legit question or if he's just trying to reignite the chaos. Most of them laugh and snicker at the thought. Marinette, however, takes the opportunity to gather more information. What did you think of the theory, Miss Bustier? The class focuses back on Marinette, but this time she doesn't blush. She needs information from an adult perspective to decide between plans A or B. Her classmates were great so far, but Marinette needed a hell of a lot more before making a soundproof plan. This was a dangerous action. Pushing for information about the heroes was something that Alia would do. Marinette most times didn't even seem to care that much about the heroes, or at least starting conversations about them. Plus, now that everyone was on guard regarding the miraculous magic, it would be easier to trip up. Miss Bustier takes a deep breath and exhales. She looks around the room at each of her students with an unreadable expression. Finally, her eyes set back on Marinette. I read it last night. I had a little time to review it. I must say it's well written. The way the author presents their findings and adds data is very effective. I will say that there is room to improve, mainly when the author diverges from the main topic and a few grammatical errors. The idea of presenting it as a story is captivating and interesting. She smiles at Marinette. Her smile is so strained that it makes a part of Marinette ache. She almost wants to drop it. Almost. She can't, not yet. Marinette is going to ask her parents' opinion when she gets home. She has a feeling that it might be more painful than this. At home, she doesn't have the space to maneuver she has here. If her parents try to change the subject, she can insist once or twice, any more, and she has to lie to her parents. Marinette Dupan-Cheng is many things. A good liar isn't one of them. Here she is just a student that is oddly fascinated with this theory, and she has an equally fascinated class with her. She doesn't have to lie, and the peer pressure is a lot bigger. She silently asks Miss Bustier for forgiveness, because it's clear she doesn't want to talk about it. I was asking more along the lines of content, and not so much the structure. The way she says it is cold with a hint of steel. Straight to the point, in a way she only uses when she's Ladybug and something has gone wrong. Marinette notices the surprise on some of her classmates' faces, but she just smiles and looks at Miss Bustier. When the author reveals their feelings about how they accepted the heroes' ages, she describes it as heartbreaking. I think that this is the perfect way to express my own opinion when I start to read. The amount of guilty faces around the classroom would probably be a red flag at any other point. But now, not so much. You could hear a pin drop, but Miss Bustier wasn't finished. I was under the impression they were older, that Chloe was the youngest hero among the team. I thought they were using her as a role model for kids to overcome their more insensible sides. That's a kind way of saying she thought Ladybug and Cat Noir were using one of the biggest bullies in Paris as an example that people can change. She's not completely off the mark, but it was a little more complicated than that. And that was why she was on the team. When I read through the part about the part-time heroes, I felt like crying. When I read the part about the free time that the superheroes have, I felt like crying. When I remembered that they have been doing this for nearly 2 years, I felt like crying. Children should be happy. They should have space to make mistakes, time to learn through the things they like and don't like, time to grow, time to laugh. They shouldn't be fighting terrorists every day of their lives. She smiles with the most heartbreaking smile at Marinette and says, I know you all focus on the magic aspect of the situation because it seems to be the most fascinating to you. But as an adult, especially as a teacher, seeing children picking up weapons and going to fight terrorists is, for me, one of the uglier sides of humanity. They don't pick up weapons, they save the day, and they're teenagers, not children, protests Adrien in an attempt to comfort their teacher. He was completely missing the point that Miss Bustier was trying to make. They're still fighting every single day. Before I came here, I was in the teacher's lounge, and all of them agreed with me. Children should not be fighting for their lives. They should be loved and happy, not burnt out by fighting several hours a day and being exhausted. No one says anything, but Miss Bustier has started to cry while talking about the subject. But there's nothing to do now. We can't really demand that they give up their Miraculous to other people. We aren't Hawkmoth, and that makes it so much worse that we have to put the defense of the world on children. Alarm bells go off in Marinette's head when Miss Bustier says that the other teachers agree with her. Maybe it's an exaggeration, and only some of them really agree. However, her gut feeling is screaming at her that this is not going to be an easy fix. Plan A is going to be very hard to pull off based on Miss Bustier's opinion. The magic could help, but it has been Marinette's experience that adults are a lot more cynical than teenagers. How does she play this? She knows that the situation needs to be fast and efficient. Playing up the magic aspect is not enough. Plan B is also going to be a lot more complicated than originally thought. Miss Bustier seems really guilty over the thought that the heroes of Paris are as young as her students. The irony. So even admitting to being younger than the public's perception is not going to be easy. Miss Bustier seems to have recomposed herself. She is no longer crying. Marinette feels insanely guilty at that moment. Miss Bustier didn't deserve to be put on the spot like that, especially because she felt uncomfortable talking about it. Maybe the class focuses back on Marinette, but she doesn't really look up from her desk. They aren't teenagers anymore? It was an obvious way to comfort Miss Bustier. In that moment, she feels Alia grabbing her hand. She looks at her and receives a compassionate stare. She is probably thinking that Marinette feels guilt about pushing the subject. It's so much more than that. But she can't tell her the truth, so she smiles. Marinette feels like she has spent the entire day faking smiles, and it isn't even lunchtime. Maybe you're right, Marinette. I hope they aren't. And if they are, I hope they have a support system in place. Marinette feels a stabbing pain in her heart, but keeps smiling, not really saying anything. Adrien smiles at her, and for a second, Marinette feels it's a little easier to keep the smile on her face. The debate continues, but she doesn't really add anything else. They talk a little about the ethical issues of having teenagers fight Hawkmoth, but they don't really get into the issue. No one wants Miss Bustier to start crying again. At lunchtime, Marinette is still pretty quiet, but her classmates assume it's because of the class debate. She has a lot on her mind. How can she handle the situation? How to approach her parents? Can she approach her parents knowing they might react in the same way as Miss Bustier? She needs to talk to Kat and come up with a plan. There is no way they can ignore this. They need to release a joint statement about the issue, and fast. Marinette, girl, are you listening to me? Alia brings her back to the table. Sorry, I'm a little distracted. Dudette, I don't think Miss Bustier took it personally. It wasn't like you were trying to make her feel bad. You didn't even push that hard, and you would have stopped if you noticed Miss Bustier was uncomfortable. That wasn't really true. Marinette was going to push for an answer no matter what. She needed the answer to come up with a solution. However, Nino didn't know that. I think Miss Bustier didn't take their supposed ages well, Adrien says, while smiling at Marinette. Normally, she would have become incapable of speech if Adrien spoke to her, but today she is just too worried. I can't say I blame her. This morning, I was talking about it with Nora, and she was pretty freaked out. I didn't really think it was a big deal. She pointed out that if in 10 years from now, the twins were to pick up magical jewelry and go fight Hawkmoth, I wouldn't be very happy. Alia looks nervous for the first time in that conversation. Marinette can't tell if it's because she's worried about her secret identity, or if she's having second thoughts about being Rena Rouge. Yeah, if Chris decided to pick up superhero as his career in a decade, I would lock the little dude in his room. Why? You said you don't really think that Ladybug and Cat Noir were adults. Why is the thought of your little brother becoming a superhero in the future so weird? Especially because he would be older than you are right now. Dude, it's a little different when you have little siblings. You look at them and you know that someday they'll be adults with responsibilities and duties, but you don't just think that day will come. Trying to picture them saving the day is weird. You and Alia are part-time superheroes. You haven't figured out that it's more than saving the day. Marinette thinks back to Cat Noir's first appearances, when he didn't look like he was taking the job seriously. With time, that passes. All part-time heroes see the Akuma as something they need to defeat and then save the day. They all look up to her for a winning plan. They don't feel the pressure that she and Cat feel every single day. They don't know the fear she has of failure. She can't fail, not even once. If she does, then Hawkmoth wins. They don't know that sometimes, after a really rough Akuma's, she lays in her bed, beyond exhausted, but incapable of falling asleep. Her brain wouldn't let her rest with the what-if scenarios running in her head. Sometimes it's so hard to be Ladybug. The conversation ends when Adrian leaves a little early to call Natalie, and Nino needs something from Max. Marinette looks at Alia. Do you think they're too young? What? Do you think Ladybug and Cat Noir are too young to be fighting Hawkmoth? What? Marinette, they're awesome. They always save the day, and they're amazing heroes. Alia looks at Marinette like she's gone mad. I know that. I'm not asking because I doubt their success. She does, sometimes. It's the only thing she can think about. Is more along the lines of their mental health. And I mean, they might have a busier schedule than Adrian. She laughs awkwardly. Well, we still don't know their ages for sure. They're probably older than us. And besides, they were chosen for a reason. Sure, Master Fu was too old and he needed young people who would fit the Miraculous. They didn't get chosen because they were the best options around. They got chosen because their youth would allow them to grow into the powers of the Miraculous. A dark part of her brain whispers that it was because they were naive enough to want the job. You're probably right. The smile she gives Alia hurts. I'm just worried after the way Miss Bustier looked. She trails off. Marinette is worried about the reaction of the rest of Paris. Alia hugs her. Don't take it personally. Miss Bustier is just emotional. The miraculous magic probably affected her more than us. She didn't know they weren't adults. She'll get used to it, and then it'll be old news. You're right. It's just been a weird day. I mean, I got here 15 minutes before the bell rang. I know. It's been a crazy day. They walk arm in arm to class. The rest of the day goes by pretty quickly. Alia rushes home after she starts getting calls from the TV station about her theory. The news is about to go national. Marinette walks calmly back home and allows herself to relax a little. It's a beautiful day. Hi, honey. How was your day? Her mom asks as soon as Marinette walks through the door. Crazy. There's this new theory about Ladybug that has the entire school talking about it. Really? What's it about? Her dad asks. Ladybug and Cat Noir's ages. Both her parents look surprised. You should read it when you have the time. It's pretty interesting. A few clients come in, and Marinette starts to head upstairs. Her mother tells her that they'll talk more about it when the bakery closes. That leaves about 3 hours to call Cat Noir and search for more information online. Getting a hold of Cat Noir takes priority, so she transforms and checks her yo-yo. She has a message from Cat Noir. Milady, I've seen this theory on the Lady blog that might be a catastrophe. I can't meet up until patrol, something in my personal life, but I assume that we might need to chat. Eiffel Tower, the usual time? Stay positive. See you later. Link. Well, that's one less problem. Cat's aware of the problem, and they will meet later. However, in the back of her mind, there are 2 red flags. 1, Cat already knows the problem, which means the theory has gone viral. 2, he actively sought her out with the problem. Normally, he waited for her to lead, but it was obvious that he's worried. His message was a lot shorter than normal, and he was talking a mile a minute. He might be rushed by personal issues. He did mention something going on, but Marinette is more inclined to believe that he's anxious. She takes a deep breath, lays on her bed, and groans. She really thought today was going to be a slow day. This concludes the 2nd chapter of The Growing Pains of Child Soldiers. This was a really long chapter. I like the Miss Bustier's opinions of everything. I think it really brings light to how the adults are taking the situation. Let me know what you guys think, and thank you so much for listening.